Hey YouTube, I'm Sergeant Indy, and this is Ninjectory, my DevTober DevVlog. This is week 3. I spent this week fiddling with my save system and then making a whole bunch of tutorials for the sake of my player knowing what the missiles do before they actually encountering them and not having to figure them out themselves. So I'm just going to hop right into it. We're just going to go through this briefing room I've got set up. It just sort of goes through all of the briefings. We're going to go through all of that. I'm going to talk about how I set all of this up. And then if I've got anything more to say, I'm just going to cut into footage of me playing last week to finish off the rest of the video because I am exhausted. So I was up until like past 2 a.m. last night. And then I had to be up early this morning in order to go to an appointment with Shrink A, and then I had a little bit of dev time, which I got to finish all of this up, and then I had an appointment with Shrink B through like telehealth through the webcam. Currently there's no timer for this, so I'm just sort of hitting the trigger to keep things going. But yeah, anyway, this is what I had to build. As you can see, wait, you guys can see my mouse. So, like, these are the micro missiles. This is the insides of the micro missiles. I wanted like a blown up display of them. We've got talking heads going back and forth, and I wanted to do that for every missile, and so we could talk about some of their mechanics when they're important. These micro missiles aren't important, but you know, they just explode. Let's get the mouse out of there for now. You know, that just giving the player some sort of heads up, some sort of talk through. And for a lot of these missiles, it's really not important. All the missiles so far, like this one, it's just a little faster than the other ones. Who cares? Not that big of a deal, right? But once we start getting to like this one, you know, you've got to hit this one twice. That's kind of important. You know, the player should know that they have to hit this one twice, either through 2 separate explosions or through hitting it with a sword and twice, or any combination of those couple of things, right? It's important that they know one shot's not going to do this missile in. And then it gets even more important, like, you know, this one can't be exploded at all. For the record, all of these little diagrams, they were a huge pain in the butt for me to make. I'm not a pixel artist. It's been a week of mostly pixel art for me, so it was very slow going and kind of miserable, to be perfectly honest. And I'm still not a great pixel artist. I think I kind of get my point across with these things. It's good enough for now. Definitely, like, my talking heads are really, really bad, and I know that, but, you know, whatever. But yeah, this EMP missile, letting the player know that if you hit it with your sword, harmless to buildings, but if you hit it with your sword, that EMP burst will fry your pack, and then, you know, I can reignite my pack by rapidly triggering boost. These are important things for the player to know. So yeah, that's the point of all of this. I thought it was cute, the jammer. I didn't do an exploded display of it, because if it's any good at being a jammer, the scanners can't see what's inside of it, right? So that's just me being cute, also saving myself a tremendous amount of work making that. Yeah, almost done. That's the Air 2 Ninja missile, and this is the last briefing, because it's the last missile I've made. Right now I've got 2 or 3 more on the drawing pad. None of them will probably be completed by the end of the month. Yeah. Anyway, EMP coil, so if it knocks you out, put your boost back on. You can use your brake to juke the thing. You know, it's important. I've capitalized the important parts. And that brings us back to the title menu. I'm going to go ahead and quit here. And like I said, from here on out, I'm just going to be recording. I'll show you last week's recording while I talk us the rest of the way out. So I have 9 days of real dev left, because my weekends I'm at the shop, right? So my weekend dev time is pretty limited. Like this weekend, I plan on just more or less testing that briefing system, making sure it actually works level to level outside of my little briefing room testing thing that I just showed you. I'm almost positive it does, but, you know, I'm only going to have, like, maybe a grand total of 5 hours over the next 2 days to dev, so, you know, what are you going to do? On the docket are... Currently, the missiles just sort of spawn from random quarter lengths across the map. I have talked in the past in one of my videos about making battery objects. Battery as in a gunnery battery, not as in an electrical battery, like an artillery term. But these battery objects would spawn the missiles instead of them being done entirely through, like, quarter lengths. That way I could say load up 3 batteries on one side of the map, 1 battery on another side of the map, and that would make a map that's buildings are laid out more or less the same play very differently if their batteries are located differently. In accordance with all of this, there's also a tutorial level where I'm going to put all the batteries on one side of the screen and all the buildings on like the other half of the screen. And that'll give the like a new player time to mess around. I've got to figure out how to get like some text to pop up kind of between waves. So you're like, oh, you can use your boost to get around, or you can use your brake to turn around real fast. I'll probably start with the brake. Anyway, the last wave I'm going to put a new battery spawned directly over the buildings so that they'll have to use their boost to sort of zip around back and forth. Anyway, I'll probably try to knock that, the battery change and then the testing of this new briefing system out over the weekend in my 5 or 6 hours I'll have to dev. My next 2 weeks are going to be focused on making a demo, like a proper demo of the game. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is I'm going to reformat the game into 10 levels with only like the first 4 missiles or so, right? And I'm going to try to work on some sort of big set piece, like quote-unquote boss battle, to cap that off, because that's the plan, is that I'm going to do 4 quote-unquote worlds of 10 levels apiece with some sort of set piece at the end, and that's going to be the whole game, ready to launch. So that's that. I have a guy who's working on some cutscene art for like an intro cutscene, and it's coming along pretty good. So if that gets done, I'm also going to try to slam the opening cutscene in. But that's my dream, my goal. Like, I've got too many missiles for my goal for the end of the month, but my goal for the end of the month is, hey, let's come up with, a one-world demo I can hand off to people and get them to play. Another challenge in those 9 days of actual dev is that the game can currently only be played with controller. Like, if you don't have a controller plugged in and you start the game up, the only thing you can do is press escape to exit the thing. So ideally, I've got to come up with some sort of keyboard and mouse controls, and I don't know where to start with that. The game is a little too complicated to really play with just 8 directions, so WASD to move isn't really going to work. I think I've got to come up with some sort of mouse thing, like maybe I could draw a line pointed in the direction that the game is picking up the cursor going. Maybe I've got to make an actual cursor object. I don't know. At any rate, that's the plan for keyboard mouse controls. I don't think it's ever going to be as good as the game feels on controller, but hey, if Meat Boy can get away with, disclaimer, this game plays best with a controller, then I feel like I can get away with that too. Anyway, that's it. I've mostly just been doing briefing objects, all the UI overlays, making my text system work. That's all the same text system, by the way. In fact, that's all the same room. What happens throughout the course of the normal game is that you go into a room, it detects that you haven't been briefed on a certain missile yet, and then before that room even finishes loading, it says, hey, we're going to go to this other room, this briefing room, and I've got a persistent object, and that persistent object just consists of 2 variables. What room am I coming from, and what missile are we briefing? And then you go to the briefing room, it says, hey, what are we briefing? It gets all the data from a single script, all the lines of text, all the, portraits on each side, everything, yada, yada, yada. And it runs the briefing, and then it shoots you back to the last room, and then the next time you have a brief, it does the same thing. Just boom, boom, back and forth between those 2 rooms. pretty seamless. I'm pretty impressed with it. Oh gosh, another thing I did this last week is that I realized that I was still getting some performance slowdown despite switching to particles, which, I mean, you're going to. You're just sort of pushing the work somewhere else, and that doesn't mean you're not still doing a lot of work, right? But what I ended up doing was I realized that all of these objects having their own particle systems and particle emitters, as I had done, was really kind of dumb, because now every time I make a missile, right, it's got a particle system for its trail. And so now you kill that missile, it now, in its cleanup event, has to go, hey, I've got this particle system, I've got these emitters, I've got to get rid of those. Meanwhile, I've now created several explosion objects, because each explosion is actually a series of, like, explosion clusters. So all of those objects are now going, hey, I've got to initialize this particle system, and then, 30, 40 steps later when I'm done, I've got to kill that particle system. So instead what I've done is now the game's main controller has all of the particle systems sort of individually labeled, missile trail particle system, explosion particle system, build and falling particle system, all the particle systems. But they're all done up as globals. And yeah, that is a little scary. Doing anything with globals is a little scary. But essentially all I've done is at any time these explosion clusters would, oh, I'm going to use this emitter and emit a bunch of smoke. They just do it with the global name now instead of the other one. And so there's not really a lot of touching stuff back and forth. Anyway, I've cut down significantly on the amount of memory that needs to be allocated when a missile is created or an explosion is created. And I've, memory unallocation when those objects are destroyed. And that's made things considerably smoother. I would suggest if you're doing a lot of object and particle heavy stuff like I'm doing in the future, I would suggest you try to do what I've just described, which is, I don't even know. Like I said, I went to bed sometime past 2 o'clock in the morning, got up early. I've been talking with shrinks and deving ever since. I am exhausted, so at this point, I'm just going to try to throw this video out there, see if anybody wants to see it. Yeah. Next 2 weeks, trying to make a real 10-level demo with a big set piece at the end. And that sounds fun, I guess. It's kind of obnoxious that I've got a lot more missiles than I need, but on the other hand, I kind of needed to prove to myself that you could get a lot of gameplay variety out of, how many missiles can you really make? Can you really make these missiles feel different? And I think I've done that. The missiles, they behave a little different, they explode a little different, they feel different to engage with, and I think that's important. And as a proof of concept, to really think, is this a game that I could actually make and that people could actually want to play for 40 levels? I think I've answered that, and I think the answer is pretty much, yeah. Yeah. And so, is it a bummer that my ultimate goal for at the end of DevTober is a 10-level thing with, I'm showing you guys gameplay. I'm still scrolling around GameMaker right now. It's probably going to be, let's see, regular missile, micro missile, fat missile, fast missile. That's probably going to be it for my 10-level pitch. It's just that initial volley of 4 missiles and the big set piece at the end. Maybe I'll throw in the armored missiles. I'm not sure. Anyway, is it a bummer that I've designed 5 more missiles slash enemies, because the jammer's not really a missile? On top of that, yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But I mean, again, I think it was important for me to prove to myself that this was a game that's worth playing for that long. And again, I think I've done that. But ultimately, I would like to have a demo that I can get in people's hands so people can play it and give me their feedback. And, obviously, right off the bat, I know a lot of feedback is going to be, you need an awful lot more sound and music in this game. And I know that, but I am neither a musician nor a sound guy. I'm not a sound guy. So I just sort of dig around for free sounds from places, and I'm limited by my patience, because digging through free sound sites is God, maybe it might be one of the worst things in the world. Anyway, it's important to me to get the demo done for the end of DevTober. That's important to me. It's important to me if my artist buddy gets back to me with the cutscene stuff, to have a cutscene. It's important for me to get all of that done. And so that's where I go from here for, like I said, my 9 more days of real dev, because it's Monday through Friday next week. And then the week after that, it's Monday to Thursday, because the Thursday's the 31st. And then, so it's one more dev vlog next Friday. And then on the 1st of November, I'll probably be producing another bigger kind of devlog where I just talk about the whole thing. You know, you're supposed to do a post-mortem, and I will probably just do a video post-mortem. I might make a post somewhere too, I'm not sure. But like I said, that leaves me 9 days of real dev, and then two more weekends where I'm only really going to get like somewhere between 5 and 8 hours for the whole each weekend. Anyway, I'm Sergeant Indy. This continues to be Ninjectory and DevTober. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.